saw you on Adam 22. You're like, go to college.
Yeah, because college is a super reliable course to build your.
It's a scam. College is a giant scam. Most of these majors are a waste of time now. You have to pay $50,000 a year to a lot of these schools.
Why do you think people pay the money?
Because it's an illusion to make them feel like they're productive and they're doing something when in reality they don't know what they want to do. They're just in there taking up loans and then they end up at 40 with a bunch
all
of
of societies, they don't end up with debt. They end up out earning people with high school degrees by about $1 million over the end of their lifetime. There's a reason why people pay so much for degrees. It's because they tend to pay for themselves.
You're telling me you don't know a lot of people in your generation that have to pay so much money off in student loans?
I know more people that went broke on crypto than I know people that wasted money on a STEM degree.
Okay, but why are you advocating for the grind of college, but not advocating for making money?
Because college is a reliable path that if you get on the path and you put in the work, there's a guaranteed reward at the end. It's not a competition with other people. Competition's by
a reliable path. What did you go to college?
Kind of.
Kind of. So you didn't even you dropped out, and you're telling people to go to college?
Yeah, because I'm a 1 in a million. What I did was incredibly rare. Like, what do you mean?
Okay, so this is an interesting topic for me because I taught college for a year. I actually got a master's degree. I got my BA. So I got my BA in Spanish and marketing. I thought I was going to go and do something in the business field and that learning a second language would be an asset. I got a scholarship to go do an MA at Columbia in Spanish. And I said, oh, this will be great. I'll perfect, my Spanish. Fantastic. Hated it, loathed it. Came out. I taught college for a year and then I went and I taught at a private school in Manhattan, grades 7 through 12. I was a dean there, basically an advisor doing a whole bunch of stuff. I also taught in a Catholic school. So I've had a pretty extensive experience teaching. I'm somebody who tells people, this is my advice. You mentioned STEM here. STEM is very different than a liberal arts degree. So you're talking about specialized use. I'm guessing that you mentioned STEM because that is more specified.
I mentioned STEM because I don't want to go through the argument of because technically people that get philosophy degrees and English and history degrees, English and history is important to society, and the degradation of these degrees, we don't care about arts or any of that. That's all silly. We only care about is silly. But I didn't want to have that argument with him at that particular point in time.
Okay, can we have it? Can we have that discussion now? Are you
if you'd like to, sure.
I would love to because I had that degree, and what happened to me was I graduated from, and let me tell you my story. I don't know if it'll help you or not, but I graduated from college. I had a 4.0. I worked my butt off. I loved it. I loved studying. I was a professional student. I went to Columbia. I graduated with all honors. I come out and I go to get a job. And do you know what I knew how to do? Nothing. I had no practical skills. None. Knew how to do nothing. Seriously, I went to go get a job at an insurance company and I was like, what am I going to do? I don't have any practical skills. I could think. I could talk. I could do all of that stuff, but I didn't have any practical skills for the workforce. So I wandered around and meandered around and all that stuff. So here's how I feel about college. If you're going for something specified, say you want to be an engineer, something very, very specific where you're going to go, you're going to study, you're going to acquire a certain skill set, you're going to come out, you're going to be marketable in an industry, you're going to have skills available to work on day one. I know how to do X, Y, and Z, practical skills, great. If you're going to go and you're just going to float around and you're going to take gender studies and you're going to, take some literature classes and you're going to largely socialize because that's what college has become. And by the way, get indoctrinated, which is happening in colleges all across America. So you come out thinking one way and not free thinking for yourself. All of that happens. You come out and you have no practical skills. How is that helpful? Is it not more helpful for someone to sign on for an online program and learn how to actually do something? Or I'm not saying do nothing. But I'm saying there are alternatives now to a 4-year degree that are specialized, that are practical, so that somebody comes out and knows how to do something, as opposed to just, I'm smart, I went to college, what do you know how to do? I don't know.
If you go to college and you don't do a single internship, you don't get a single job, you don't do anything, you've wasted the experience. I can point to, if you want to say that that's going to be the archetype of the college student you want to hold up, then fine. Then I'll say, if you don't go to college and you just meander around, you work at 7-Eleven, then you get a job at McDonald's, then you become a McDonald's supervisor, and then you go work at Burger King. Well, you've also wasted 4 years of your life, right? I'm not going to compare the high-driven guy that doesn't go to college and does all the certifications on his own, all the workshops on his own, gets a huge job, and by 22 and then compare that to like a college student that does nothing. That's not an equal comparison.
But forget about doing it. I had a 4.0. I worked my butt off.
I don't know what your college, can you speak Spanish?
But there's plenty of people. Sure, of course I can.
Nice, and you're Miami, so that's good. There you go. That's a good skill you picked up.
But what was that going to do? If I wanted to be a Spanish teacher, great.
I can't go on your personal experience
so
because I don't know.
let's speak
But
in general.
this is something that I would beg conservatives to do. You have to stop attacking liberal arts because I'm tired on my stream of debating how many new black, trans, women characters are in the next TV show, okay? Conservatives have suicided themselves on the culture war because they refuse to engage in the things that matter culturally. And when you say things
What
like,
matters culture?
like things like liberal arts are important, things like entertainment, things like music, all these things are really important things. And when conservatives just say, do STEM, don't do that, that's for losers. English is for losers. History is for losers. And you turn around, you're like, oh my God, CRT, that's horrible. Well, how do you expect, what else would CRT be besides something written by the most progressive and crazy people? Because all the conservatives are driven to only do engineering and technology, right? I want there to be a conservative that is studying gender studies. I want that to happen so that when people are saying things like, I think any gender can be anything and our pronouns should be Zer, I want a conservative there saying, you know what? I think it's good to push on some gender things, but that's a little bit fucking insane. You know, I think that'd be good. But when conservatives push for education to look a certain way, I think that some of it starts to become self-fulfilling, to where conservatives will say, I think the institutions are becoming a little bit ideologically driven. Stay away from the liberal arts. Or I think that college in general is becoming more ideologically driven. We need to kind of like do private schools and stay out of there. Well, what's happening to the schools? They're becoming more and more ideologically driven as conservatives refuse to engage with them. And then those people are growing up. They're joining the administration and the staff, and now they're becoming even more left-leaning. And then conservatives are going, oh my God, look at all these liberal institutions. Look at how far left they are. And I grew up listening to Rush Limbaugh telling me constantly that this is what colleges were going to become, and kind of like mail-in ballots for Trump. It almost became a form of self-fulfilling prophecy, in my opinion.
But colleges have been like that. I mean, I went to college 20 years ago, and it was already like that. It was already all liberal all the time. I mean, conservatives, it sounds great. It sounds like a utopia. Conservatives go into a gender, gender studies class, and they talk about pronouns, and everyone has a great civil discussion, and everyone disagrees. That's not what happens to conservatives on college campuses. They
Not
get
now,
shut
it doesn't,
down.
of course.
They get put in the corner. You see, conservative can't even go to speak. I mean, a Tommy Lauren, whether you agree with her or not, can't even go to speak on a college campus without getting shut down, harassed, and they have to call in security. That's a huge problem. Why would a conservative parent want to send their child to an institution of supposedly higher learning where they're going to learn how to be a free-thinking person for them to either get indoctrinated or punished? Ridiculous. I would never. I hope that my child, I have a son, I have a 3-year-old, amazing kid, smart kid, great. What I want for him more than anything is for him, once he figures out what he wants to do in life, I would love for him to get some practical skills in that area. I don't need him to go to college for 4 years to learn how not to think, to be indoctrinated, for me to spend a fortune, for him to come to party and drink and do whatever he's going to do, and to come out and not know how to do anything. If he comes to me and he says, hey, listen, Mom, I want to do X, Y, and Z, and there's a program for this, and I can do it in 2 years, and I'm going to come out and I'm going to be able to do this, and it's going to be really awesome, and that's what I want to do. Amazing. Let's do it. So conservatives aren't here saying, oh, humanities is a joke and we don't care about English.
They do say that, but
I mean, that's just what they're saying is that if you're going to invest money in something, there should be a return on that investment. And that means that you should have a productive, free-thinking child at the end of that comes out and is in a better position than they were before they went in. That's not what's happening in college. If I were hiring someone for a position today, I would much rather hire someone who did not go to college. Why?
No shot.
100%.
Absolutely
And I do it all
not.
the time. And the reason is that the people who go to college go through 4 years, and every single one of them talks and thinks and acts like a robot 9 out of 10
That's
times.
just if I'm hiring somebody and I've got 2 equivalent candidates in front of me, and I've got a guy that was able to get his 4-year degree, that speaks volumes. I know that you can be on time. I know that you can show up every day and do what's assigned to you. I know that you have the ability to finish something. That's a hugely important thing versus somebody that shows up with no degree. If you don't have a degree and you can make it without a degree, but you need a damn good portfolio to do that. And that is true advice for anybody working in any field. If
That
you think you can
4-year
show up,
degree is on
if
its
you,
way out.
It's
on its way out.
absolutely.
It's
If
on
it's
its way
on
out.
its way out, it's only because people are wanting more and more and more education. The college degree is the #1 grower of wealth inequality in the United States because people with college degrees are out earning everybody else so much.
Watch what
And
happens
it's
in the next 10 years with college degrees.
It's becoming
Watch.
more of a it's only trended in one direction where the degrees are becoming more and more important. It's so important. Even other conservative-esque people like Jordan Peterson talk about, like, how do we have a society where it functions when the IQ requirements for performing well in society are becoming higher and higher and higher and higher, where the types of work that we have, the specialization required, the training required is getting higher and higher and higher, to where having that 4-year degree is, from my day, it's the equivalent to it used to be having a GED or high school degree, where, like, if you didn't have high school in the 80s or 90s, like, well, man, what are you? You're a loser. Well, now, 2002, it just, the numbers don't lie. I mean, like, you can look at the median earnings for a high school degree.
What I'm telling you is that
it is changing, and that it's becoming more and more of a requirement.
You're talking to me about IQ as if college is an indicator of your IQ.
You don't think IQ correlates to intelligence?
Do you know how many people I talk to every day who are entrepreneurs who who didn't go to college or
And
spent
how
their
many
college
people-
years doing nothing,
how
or
many-
wasted their college years, or have that 4-year degree but partied and joked around all the time. And you'll talk to them and they'll say, I had a friend who didn't go to college at all but was motivated and was focused. I'm not saying, by the way, I'm not saying don't do anything. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is, as an alternative to a 4-year degree for everyone, and some people may thrive in college. Like I said, you go to school for engineering, you go to school for a specialized subject, you go to school for someone where there's going to be an obvious reward to that program. Fine. I'm not telling people, everyone, this is a blanket recipe for you. However, there are going to people out there who are going to want to do something specialized that does not fit in with a 4-year bracket. That doesn't mean that they're not going to work hard. That doesn't mean that they're not going to develop a skill set. That doesn't mean that they're not going to be marketable to an entrepreneur just because they don't have a 4-year degree. That way of thinking is going to be antiquated very soon.
I'll if you want to do a time frame and a $20 bet, I'll bet you money. It's the easiest money I've ever made. Okay, $20,
I can do that for $20.
5 years, whatever you want. We'll do another episode if we're still live. And
But Steven, look at what happened. Honestly, look at the one of the reasons that we just went through, pandemic, whatever you want to call it, last couple of years, and you saw what happened on college campuses. Look at what happened. I mean, they locked kids down in their dorm rooms in many schools. They now are, instituting, I don't know how you feel about mandates. I strongly oppose the mandates, but they're instituting that on college campuses. You have parents all over the place that are watching this stuff and saying, what am I paying for?
I am 33 years old. I went through a phase when I was 15 where my parents did a certain thing and I didn't like that thing and I wanted to do the exact opposite of everything.
Mm-hmm.
At some point, we have to grow out of that. I can look at college campuses, and I've argued a lot of stuff. I think that I just went to the University of Texas in Austin and A&M, and I just did a Change My Mind event where I argue that wokeism is going way too far across most college campuses. I'm not going to disagree with it. That's absolutely true in a number of ways. People were writing, school administrators were writing if people needed therapy after the Rittenhouse verdict. Okay,
Yes. Or the Trump win.
Yeah, it was unbelievably cringe. But I can't let that one thing that I don't like poison my mind against seeing all of the other upsides of doing college. If you have people that are capable of doing things outside of college, this is the advice that I give somebody. If somebody asks me, if they go, do you think I should go to college? And I go, if you have to ask me, the answer is probably yes. Because the type of people that are driven enough, like when you talk about people that didn't go to college that are entrepreneurs, they're not going to college because they did really bad in math and English and school is just not for them. They're not going to college because they're so busy with the path they're on in life, with what they've got already, they don't have time for it, right? There are people that are 19, 20. Yeah, they're already working with their parents' business. They're already have learned a trade, through their teen years because friends or a dad of a friend taught them things. They're already contributing to projects online. They're coding, they're programming 19, 20, 21. Right. And by the time these people at 22, 23, these are the stars. These are the people that they would come to me, hey, can I work on your website? Can I do it? And I go, oh, well, what have you done? And they go, this is what I've done. I go, okay, yeah, obviously you can work on my stuff. But a lot of people that don't go to college aren't like that. And it's a bit, it's, I don't want to say delusional because that's too harsh, but this idea that like all these people don't go to college because they're so busy pursuing other things is just not true.
I'm not saying all of them, but that's where the role of parenting comes in, where you have to know your kid. You have to have. I
have my child is 11 years old, and I told him, if you want to get into YouTube, do stuff like I do, that's great. You're finishing school though. You absolutely are. It's just you're doing college. It's once you have that degree, nobody can take it from you. You've shown something to the world. I might go, but that you can finish a college degree.
You show a piece of paper to the world that says,
I'm so jealous of. Give me your master's.
You can have it. You know what? You can have it because and I'll tell you why you can have it, because I learned more practical skills waitressing in New York City than I ever got from getting a master's degree at Columbia University. And if I could go back in time, I always say I wouldn't change anything because you know how you see those movies where you go back in time and I want my family to be what it is today and I love my child. I wouldn't want to move any of those puzzle pieces. But if I could go back and not move any of the puzzle pieces and not have wasted a year at Columbia University, I got it for free and I can't even justify it.
It's a unique experience though.
Great. It was a unique experience. I was miserable.
Then you should have done something better with it. But you know what?
It was not practical.
Where are there more miserable people at? Miserable people getting their masters at Columbia's or miserable people that are doing waitressing in New York City?
You know what? I don't know, actually, because everybody I worked with was happy.
Then here's a question. If we talk about all of the elites in society, the elites that run everything, I know you guys like that one. What do they do with other kids? What do they do with other kids? They're getting them into the best university, the best Ivy League schools. You're going to Stanford. You're going to.
Why is that?
But these guys are so successful. Shouldn't they be telling their kids? No, not my son's not going to waste his time at Harvard or Yale. My son's going to go out and he's going to start working at 19 because education is important. It's the foundation that you build the rest of your life on. And you're at the one stage in life where you can continue to learn and acquire knowledge and a unique skill set. You can't can't outside.
You know that's not why.
It is absolutely.
They're all of the same political mind. They are more than happy. You're talking about liberal elites in New York City. Of course, they're more than happy to take their kids and put them in the best universities because they know that the indoctrination that they have started in their household is just going to continue beautifully over there.
There's somebody's going to send their kid to Harvard just to finish indoctrinating. You can indoctrinate their own household.
These pieces of paper look great on a wall. What does it mean?
It shows that you went to for 4 or 5 years. You took some classes. You passed some tests. You could do a thing. Do you care about reading scores or tests? When you talk about like black communities or disadvantaged communities, do you say that like it's a crime that they can't read, that they can't do math? Why does education matter only up to a certain point, but not past that?
Because of what's happened to college in the last 2 decades.
Because of woke people?
Not just
the woke boogeyman scared the kids off of college campus?
People, but if college is not a place where you're learning how to think anymore, and if college is not a place where diversity of thought actually exists, and if college is not a place that embraces true diversity, not just in what color are you and what your culture is, but in how you actually view and see the world, then what's the point? Why do I need to send my kid to go in and come out a robot? It's ridiculous.
Because
so I'm not saying there's no value.
Because the median earning of somebody with a 4-year degree is $20,000 a year higher than.
And what I'm telling you is, I see your stats, I hear them, but what I'm trying to say is that way of looking at the world and that way of idolizing this piece of paper is going to be on its way out very soon, because what you're seeing is a rejection of $50,000 or $60,000 or $70,000 a year investment, and then you have a kid that comes out and you're like, what did I just do? The kid often comes out dumber, less able to think for themselves, and less accomplished, and they sit on the couch that year and they say, what are you going to do now? I'm not sure.
All of that, and they're still out earning their high school peers. It's crazy how that works. And they had 4 extra years together. I guess all that experience at Burger King didn't pay off.
We're not talking about today, but watch what happens. And I'm not talking about getting a minimum wage job as an alternative. What I'm saying is people need to broaden their minds. College still exists, and it will be the appropriate decision for some. Alternative programs do exist and will be the appropriate decision for some in order to, yes, you want to get educated. You want to get a path towards success. You want to get a path toward learning actual skills. That's not going to be college for everybody. That's all I'm saying. It's a little bit more gray for me than that. I don't want that to be everybody's prescription because I don't think it fits everybody's life.
Okay, well, this is a far different statement to I don't want every single person going to college versus college
I don't
is a
want
waste
every
of
single,
money.
I don't want
is
every
college a
single
waste
person.
of money? You just not want it. Because I agree, there are some people that would do way better in trade schools. I hated school. I sucked at school.
There you go.
And so, yeah, maybe I would have done better in like a different type of program coming out, for sure. And I grew up as a millennial, and millennials were all told, go to college, go to college, go to. It was like the only thing you, like, right after breathing and eating, go to college. So, yeah, I agree that there are different paths for different people.
So that's what I'm saying. What
what you were saying earlier was that college was a waste of money.
College
that's what you said
college is largely a scam for many people.
Okay, well, that's a different statement than not everybody should go to college.
But no, it is largely a scam for many people. But I also believe that because I don't believe in one size fits all for anything, whether you're talking about the medical system, whether you're talking about anything, I don't like one size fits all mandates. I don't like any of that. I say, know your kid, have a conversation with your kid, understand your kid. They're going to have gone through high school. You're going to know what that experience was like. You're going to know what they like. How driven are they? What are they interested in? Have those conversations and don't get told by people that college is their only answer and their only path towards success. I don't believe that to be true. And I do believe 100% that college, not a scam for everybody, but in large part for many students that come out, they come out dumber, less able to think for themselves, and it's a disgrace for how much money their parents have invested for 4 years.
Okay.
100%.
And I've seen plenty of people that skip college that they'll do the one leap year. Well, I'm just going to take 1 year off. They never got back into it, and their lives just kind of petter out to nothing. Very few of these people become successful entrepreneurs. Very few of these people go on to acquire valuable trades and skills. Okay. Usually they end up doing some kind of work, and they kind of promote, and they're just kind of like whatever for the rest of
Okay, I want to talk about one of your you have a nuanced opinion on
everything.
Minors, puberty blockers, some of this. I don't know if on puberty blockers, but you talked a little bit about sports as well, trans sports, etc. Let's go to NoJumper. Tyler, 3343, and let's play that. I'm loving this discussion, audience. I'm hoping you are too. By the way, Tyler, do we have super chats we need to get to?
Not yet, but
is the conversation popping?
People really like it. Actually, there was one earlier. Somebody said everybody knows that money is valuable when you have medical issues. They were making the case if you're ill, if you have a family member that's ill, that money is exceptionally valuable.
We can talk about that.
What a great argument for some sort of like socialized health.
Oh
my goodness.
A great
so
argument
that money wouldn't be a gateway to, oh my gosh.
No, government, get out of my health, get out of my life. We're going to get back to that. Okay, let's go do minor. I think this is an important gray area. So let's show this part.
There are strong arguments for minors getting access to, ideally with the doctor's approval, like HRT and stuff, or puberty blockers at least at a young age. That's a pretty radical left position. It's pretty far to the left.
Right.
But I don't think trans women should be competing in sports with cis women, and all the research supports that.
Right.
And that position can make me sound like a f***ing Nazi, depending on who I'm talking to.
But also,
Okay,
like,
so that's interesting to me because, well, I don't support puberty blockers for minors. If you're an
I could've
adult,
guessed that,
I
yeah.
have, well, you know, I lived for a very long time as like live and let live. You know, do what you want to do. As you're a grown adult, as long as you're not hurting anyone else, as long as you're, even when it comes to relationships, you want an open relationship, you don't, as long as it's consensual, no one's getting hurt, do you. But when it comes to children, I'm deeply concerned about what I'm seeing with young children. I mean, you have places like Boston Medical, you have other locations coming out and talking about having very descriptive conversations about gender in 3-year-olds. Utterly ridiculous. I have a 3-year-old. Sometimes he thinks he's a monkey. He'll say he's Curious George. He's 3. He's 3. So I think there's a lot of brainwashing and societal manipulation happening toward young children. And I also think puberty blockers for kids are incredibly dangerous. They don't just affect the sex organs, they affect multiple systems of the body. They affect the brain. And there is no scientific proof that once they are brought back in, let's say it's a pause and then you bring them back in, that a child's development continues as if it hadn't been interrupted. There's no studies that can show that. So I think it's an incredibly dangerous thing. What I'm interested about is that you hold an opinion that there should be some access to puberty blockers for kids. So I want you to talk a little bit about why. And also, though, you are what I deem rational on sports. Tell me a little bit about how it has been to exist in a world where you have those two opinions, and I'm sure you've made everybody mad at the same time.
So this is something I will die on this hill for, okay? If I have a medical issue involving my son, the only 3 people I ever want involved in that conversation are me and his mom, him, and the doctor. If somebody is trying to make some procedure that I think could make him better illegal or whatever, that is the worst possible world I could ever live in. To where if for whatever reason my son and I feel like I've gone through all the appropriate steps and he feels like he's a girl or he's a trans woman or whatever, not at 5, I'm not talking at 5, but at 14, 15.
At 14?
Yeah, if he's having those feelings and we go through therapists or whatever, and that is an option, it's like, well, this is what he's saying, this is what his doctor's saying, and you know what, I'm the parent, I'm going to ultimately make the decision to pull the trigger on that. I don't think anybody else, especially not the government, has the right to stand in between me and my child's future in that decision because of some government policy that a bureaucrat is writing.
But you support socialized medicine, right?
Socialized medicine doesn't mandate you have to get a certain procedure
So,
done.
but if you supported socialized medicine, wouldn't the government essentially have some role in every decision-making process that happen? I mean, it's government
about making
intervention
the
in personal...
availability of some particular...
Oh, that's not how socialized medicine works. You know, in all countries that have socialized medicine, there's restrictions on certain procedures and not others, and you have people that have to flee those countries to come
That's
here.
the same thing that happens in the United States with insurance companies. Have you ever tried to do an in-network or out-of-network prescription?
Yeah, but-
obviously there's going to be some decisions at the end of the day in terms of like
I'm
like
just
what
curious,
is affordable.
you said
But then
government
it's
to keep
fundamentally different between like what is an affordable drug or what's in-network, out-of-network, or what's like an appropriate prescription versus like you're not allowed to do this because ideologically Washington has voted a certain way, and now this type of treatment is available to your child. I think those are
That
fundamentally
happens under
different types of
socialized
things.
medicine all the time, where people are told that, oh, you're not entitled to this procedure because we believe that you're old and it's not worth it, and they make decisions about what people can and can't do.
Old
all the
and
time.
not these are fun. If you
Happens
have
all the
somebody that's
time.
87 years old and they're trying to get like a $20 million surgery that might extend their life by like a couple months, that's a fundamentally different question than like.
Oh,
do I
then
have
the
a right
government
to
can come in
pursue?
and say that person's not entitled to that
If it's not going to be
procedure.
the government, it's going to be an insurance company. What do you,
No,
like?
I'm
So we don't have.
talking about
We live on
under
a planet of
socialized
limited
medicine.
resources. We don't have infinite resources. There's going to be some. We do have infinite
No,
resources.
I'm talking about socialized medicine. We're having a different
This happens.
conversation.
Can you acknowledge this happens in private medicine too, right? There's only
Of
so many.
course.
Okay, so there's only so many resources. Even if it was a libertarian fantasy world,
listen.
where it's an anarcho-capitalist, we all pay for whatever we want. Even in that world, you can only buy so many things, right?
Well,
so of
not
course-
necessarily, though.
Yes,
If-
necessarily.
not
Hold on, we
necessarily.
live with limited resources. You said that.
No. Yes, within the system. But if you are somebody who went out and made a shit ton of money and you have a shit ton of money in your backyard and you can go to doctors that are not part of the system, you can have access to procedures and treatments that you wouldn't have had. Like, for example, when I had Lyme disease, perfect example, and I went through the system and what they gave me made me sicker and sicker and sicker. And then I found a holistic doctor that didn't take insurance, where it was expensive. And luckily I had saved my money and had that money in bank and went and feel better now than I ever did before. That is why money is freedom.
Okay, so you think that the best healthcare should only be available to the elites in the world?
No, absolutely
How many
not.
people are going to be able to afford to go to another country for
That's
healthcare?
why we had a whole conversation before
Wait, how many?
about
I
reaching
want
for
to
the
answer
stars.
this. How many people do you think realistically in a country can fly to another country for a medical treatment?
Not a lot.
Give me a percentage.
Oh, small amount. I don't know.
Like less than 2, probably.
Yeah, sure.
Right? Okay. I don't want a medical system. So you're telling me, well, in your system, there might be rationing because the 88-year-old grandma can't get a hip replacement. And I'm saying, well, in your system, you're telling me that less than 2% of people can afford like life-saving medicine or alternative treatments or therapies?
What I'm saying to you is I don't want to exist in a system where government is making decisions for people's individual health.
Okay, and I don't want to exist in a system where your zip code determines the type of healthcare you can get for your child. That's a crime.
Okay, so you want reform of the health insurance system in the United States, but that's not the answer to that. And I agree because I went in, separate conversation, but I remember when I went in and had a baby, and the hospital bills were extraordinary. I mean, it was insane. I honestly had a regular natural delivery, no C-section, barely any drugs, nothing. And I looked at the bills and I said, what would the average person do in a predicament like this? Because I wasn't the average person that year. I had a television job, and even to pay that was like, it was a dent, it was thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. So if we're going to have a conversation about reforming the healthcare system, great. We can have that conversation. 100% I'm on board that there are problems in our healthcare system that make basic things very inaccessible to a large number of people, or it traumatizes their entire life to have to pay for them. 100%. But is the answer to that more government involvement in the system? That is extremely dangerous as far as I'm concerned. And if you look at the past 2 years, just as what happened with government, with mandates, with the Biden administration stepping in and wanting to say, you lose your job if you don't get an experimental vaccine, that should have scared the shit out of everybody as far as when you get government involved and they are making decisions for your health, oftentimes they will make decisions that go against the advice of your own doctor, and your own doctor is done. Can't do anything about it. You either have to choose between whether to put food on the table for your family or to get an experimental drug. I do not want government having that kind of authority and power over anyone's health, because I do have a distrust of government institutions.
I work tangential to the tech field. If somebody wants to build a new piece of software or build something for a website, the first question you ask when you go to the table is, has it been done already? Because if it has, then you copy paste it. You never rebuild the wheel. Why would you ever do that? When I look at all of the successful healthcare systems around the world, I look at how everybody does healthcare. Every single country that has a functioning healthcare system does it in this way. Why would I want the United States to do it in this way? It doesn't make
well. Not
any
every country is the same. The population's not the same, and not every
people they're all human beings. A lot of them are fat in Europe. A lot of them have health issues. A lot of them are
Let me ask you this though: do you make the same argument for guns? Because when I talk about guns, people. Pierce Morgan, whoever it may be, people will say, well, this doesn't exist in Europe and we should modify. And I say, well, Europe, that's not America. That's not our Constitution. That's not what we were founded on. There are certain principles of freedom in this country. We have a Second Amendment in this country. So can we not acknowledge that it's different? It's different. United States is different.
Guns are different because the Second Amendment is literally built right into
Not to those people making those arguments. They don't care.
I'm not those people. But I wasn't aware of an 11th Amendment that said thou shalt have the right to have private insurance companies be the sole provider of healthcare coverage in the United States, and there shall not be a socialized medicine. How we deal healthcare is not enshrined in our Constitution of enumerated powers. We have flexibility and options in terms of how we want to do things. But I'm just saying that if every single country does something in this way, this is in my opinion, this is the dumb form of. There are great forms of American exceptionalism. This is the dumb form of American exceptionalism, where it's we're going to do things our own way, in the way that is the most complicated, the most expensive. We spend more than any other country in the world on healthcare related stuff. We don't even have good outcomes to show for it. And then when I argue with other people about it, well, the great thing about the United States of America is that the top 1%, the same elites that I rally against all the time, are able to fly to other countries to buy whatever crazy healthcare stuff that they want. And I don't know. I don't think that system is right.
And we would agree that there's something deeply broken about the American medical system, but we would probably disagree as to why. So increasingly, you have a number of people in this. You have an expanding problem with obesity in this country. You have an expanding problem with what people eat. You have an expanding, and I would argue that Big Pharma has a financial investment in keeping and making people sick, and that is because they don't make money off of healthy people.
How do you make people sick as Big Pharma?
By making them. Because the solution, whenever you have a problem in this country, anytime you have a headache, from when you have a headache to you have a menstrual cramp to you have anything, the solution from Big Pharma is a drug, and a drug has a side effect, and then that makes you sick. What is pharma? What does pharma stand for? What are they going to give you? I'm not going to go to Big Pharma and get a new workout plan. That's not a problem. That's exactly what pharma exists for. It's a pharmacy. But the reason it's a problem is because traditional medical establishment utilizes pharma as the primary means of solving everybody's problems. And you know what they don't do? They don't get to the root cause of the problem.
Because the root cause of the problem can't be addressed by pharmacies. But if you go into the hospital and you say, doctor, I've got high blood pressure. I have hypertension. What are you going to do for me? The doctor could say, well, check this out. First of all, your diet is insanely high in sodium.
They don't.
You don't exercise at all.
Don't say
They
that.
do, but a doctor can't just say that because what is a patient going to do? In the free, wonderful market of the United States, if you go to a doctor and he tells you over and over again, you're fat as you never sleep, and you are just, you're destroying your body with lack of physical activity, you're going to say, okay, well, you. I'm going to go to the doctor down the street and I'm going to get the pill that's going to help my blood pressure. As a doctor, the only thing you can do is prescribe a pill. Now, anytime you can say, hey, try doing diet and exercise. Talk to any doctor. They will tell you this. Every doctor that I've spoken to will say, I always tell my patients, hey, do diet, exercise, whatever. But at the end of the day, as a doctor, you can't control that.
That's not what's happening.
That
it's
is
just
exactly.
not. No, and I can tell you, listen, my personal experience, and I know people in the chat, please raise your hand if you've had this experience. But I don't know if you've ever had anything chronic that I'm sure.
My child's mom had stage 4 non-Hodgkin's lymphoma.
Okay.
So I've had lots of hospital. My grandma was,
when I had the Lyme disease, it was a nightmare. It was doctor to doctor.
Hold on, did you have Lyme disease or did you have chronic Lyme disease?
I had Lyme disease that was a late stage diagnosis. So essentially what happened was I got a late stage diagnosis. I didn't know it was Lyme. I went through a bunch of tests. I did have a rash, so later was able to attribute it to that and had symptoms that progressed until I really got to the root cause of what was going on.
What is the time frame here? Just
late stage diagnosis, like
time
9
frame,
months.
like how? Okay, all right.
Why?
I don't believe in chronic Lyme disease, but that's
it's
okay.
not chronic Lyme disease. That's
Okay.
not what I. That's not what I had. What I had
gotcha.
was a Lyme disease diagnosis that went undiagnosed for a long period of time. Got sick. Then I took prescription drugs for it, which was fantastic until it made me sicker. And then I went to a holistic doctor. I went to neurologists.
What'd you do with the holistic doctor that cured you?
A lot with diet, a lot with supplements, a lot with detoxifying the body.
Why is there nobody when you talk about people that are selling you supplements, selling you vitamin D, selling you detoxifying things? How are these guys not making money just like Big Pharma is?
They are making money.
Then why would you trust them any more than Big Pharma?
Because they get results.
If they had results, they would be Big Pharma.
No, they wouldn't.
They don't have results. That's why it's called holistic medicine and not medicine.
You're looking at the results. I could barely walk across a room on The View, and now I could probably kick most people's asses in the gym, and I feel better than I ever did before. It happens all the time. If you don't believe that people get sick, abandon a Big Pharma system, say that's not for me, and go a holistic route and get better, you're ignoring a very large segment of the population who absolutely do. The problem with our medical system is in large part that when you go to the doctor, 9 out of 10 times, they're not interested. You know what I got told when I went to the neurologist? Oh, I asked about diet. Oh, diet? Yeah, you should follow what the American Heart Association says. Okay, honey, you don't know jack shit about food is all you just told me. So they don't ask. They don't. They do medical system, regular traditional medicine doctors, ask them how much time they spend studying nutrition. Ask them. They'll tell you almost nothing.
How much time do holistic doctors spend studying medicine?
A ton of time.
No, they don't.
Of course
Absolutely
they do.
not. These people don't go to med school. These people don't.
Of course they are. They're all MDs.
No.
Every single holistic doctor that I've seen is an MD. Every single one. Every single one. Every single one. And I also don't think you should poo-poo Chinese medicine. I think there's a bunch of other areas of medicine that have been poo-pooed by
people that are
by the
acupuncturists
American,
and people that are chiropractors. These people don't go to medical school. You know that, right? They don't have to go to medical school for it.
I'm not talking about acupuncturists. Okay. I'm talking about MDs that the MDs oftentimes, by the way, that go through the regular traditional system, they get their medical degree, they go watch people continuously get sick, get drug dependent, not get better, and then go found innovative medicine practices or things like that and functional medicine practices to actually get people better and succeed at that every single day. It happens all over the country.
If it happens all over, then you do research on it, you publish the results, and then those become the new therapies that are recommended for people with those types of diseases. You're
acting like there's not a big bracket of a system that needs that big pharma stuff to get out there because they need a dependent sick society. That's a totally different.
Just as much as the supplement systems, none of which is regulated, by the way, needs these people to push those like ultra shots of vitamin C and the what do they do in Miami here where you can go and get the $300 vitamin infusion, all of that stuff.
But I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, all of these people are just as much pushing any of that stuff as the big pharma guys is. The only difference is the big pharma guys has the FDA and every other part of the private market breathing down their neck to make sure they're not messing up. Whereas these guys can say literally whatever they want.
Oh,
the
Stephen.
FDA, that's right, yes.
Stephen, you're well aware that people who work at the FDA and people who work at the CDC and people who work in big pharma are essentially a rotating door of the same employees over and over again.
What is a single industry where that's not the case?
You're talking about the
Are
ability
you going to say that somebody that ran in
health.
NASCAR is going to go work at the FDA next? Of course. Are you going to tell me that somebody that was working very high up in a pharmaceutical company is probably going to be involved in the regulatory process?
Do people who work at NASCAR ultimately have a decision about the health of you and your family? These are major medical institutions that are holding hands
They're not
consistently
holding hands.
and
There's
have
going
a
to
deep
be
investment in a sick population.
I never worked in mainstream media in my life, but I guarantee you that you probably see a lot of similar video guys, a lot of similar editor guys, a lot of people in the newsroom are showing up in other places because that's the industries that they work in. If I'm looking at who's going to, it's reality.
That's absolutely absurd.
It is, and in every single industry I've ever, you've got in professional video games, the people that are the players grow up to be the coaches.
So you don't see how it could be dangerous to have somebody from the FDA who prior worked for Pfizer come in, step into the FDA, and now want to push Pfizer products? You don't see how that could potentially be problematic?
But here's the issue that conservatives have when they criticize big anything is they always go, couldn't this be a problem?
It is a problem.
Then it is a problem. If it is a problem, then you have to show me the problem.
Did you watch Dopesick?
What?
Did you watch Dopesick?
No, what's that?
Watch it. Just watch it.
Can you
Come
summarize
back.
it for me? I've watched a lot of Project Veritas. I've done a lot of vaccine and COVID-19 research. I've done a lot of...
No, this is a great thing because you're in Miami, right?
Yeah.
Go watch Dopesick, then come back and we'll have a bigger... I don't want to spend the whole time on pharmaceuticals today because I want to get to body count, which I think is fascinating. Yes, Tyler's like this too, but I'm loving the discussion. Audience, by the way, hit that subscribe button. Hit that like button. Do we have super chat button?
We have some super chats.
Okay, let's go.
Pay for the studio.
So real quick, I put a poll up, 429 votes. 67% of the audience believe that we should switch to a socialized medicine.
Wow,
that's my commies in chat. They're all
you brought the
socialists. He
brought the commies in.
My tri-coms, my fellow, yes, they're all there. My red Soviet.
Don't worry.
So real quick, $5 super chat. If Destiny believes you can live happily on $60K, will he not donate? Why will he not donate every dime he makes over $60K and move back to Nebraska?
So something that's difficult for people that have made it is oftentimes they don't realize that they're the exception. I am the exception in a lot of different ways. I wouldn't recommend my lifestyle or the types of things that I do for other people. But that being said, if you look at me, if people treated money the way that I did, I wouldn't mind everybody trying to be a millionaire. I'm a millionaire, and if you look at the car that I drove here in a $40,000 car. The apartment I live in is it's a $3,500 a month apartment, but it's not a $7,000 a month apartment. That's it. That's all I own. All of the rest of my money goes into...
Why do you care what everybody else owns, though?
The problem that I have is I see people destroy their lives trying to find happiness through materialistic possessions.
So let me
and
ask
they're
you this,
foregoing relationships to actually get there. I live a very simple lifestyle. If I could live. If I lost some money, I could live at 40, 50, 60K a year, for sure.
But okay, so let's say somebody said to you, you believe, but the question is, you believe that on, say, 60K, somebody
you could
can
be
happy. Okay, so why don't you give all your money over 60K away? Just give it all away to charity and live at 60K and be happy.
I'm not telling you that having more money is bad. If you want to go after more money, that's fine. I like having my more money, but I also enjoy the work that I do to get there. But I don't do it at the sacrifice or the detriment to the rest of my life. If I could make 2x or 3x or 5x the money that I make if I were to do things that I didn't like, if I were to sacrifice my personal relationships, or if I were to grind work even harder, I could. But I don't. But earlier I told you, there are some people that want to build businesses. There's some people that have the talent to be an athlete or some sort of business owner or whatever. That's fine. Do it. But just because you're not doing that doesn't make you a failure or a loser. I was happy when I worked my casino job when I worked in Nebraska. I was probably making 36K a year. I think 15 to 20 to an hour.
And somebody else might not feel that way. Everybody's happiness is going to look different.
Throughout all of human history, we've been happy without airplanes, cell phones, and internet. If you think you need all of it now, you're probably the problem because you are a aberration from everything that's come before you.
I understand the message of a holistic life. Like, I get it. I get that, it can't be all work and no play. Family is important. I understand leisure is important. I understand sleep is important. Health is important. Just mind rest, which honestly, I don't know how you're on the computer so much because my mind goes crazy. That's a whole other thing, is getting off of the technology sometimes, getting out into the real world with light, sunshine, and trees and all that stuff. I get it. But the message should then be positive, like, hey, listen, you can go for whatever makes you happy, but just don't forget all this stuff, because this stuff also can accentuate your life in a big way.
And if that was the message, I'm A-okay with that.
Okay.
But a lot of the hustle culture stuff seems to be a little
in other
bit
words,
extreme.
he's not giving up his money. He's not giving up his money to go down to 60.
And I wouldn't tell anybody to give their money up. Of course not. I haven't told that to a single person. This is like the answer of I think we should be higher taxes. Well, why don't you donate all of your money to the federal government? Because me donating all of my money doesn't change anything.
It does. It makes you then loyal to what you said, which is that I'm
not loyal to people paying higher taxes. I'm loyal to there being a bigger social safety net, more government programs, and higher taxes. How that happens?
Because those are effective at getting people in better shape.
In better shape?
Yeah, like public schools.
Where do you think most of the fat people live? Do you think they're in rural communities or liberal city communities?
We should encourage them to not be fat.
They're in rural communities, right? With all the natural cows and the natural pigs and all the
we should encourage them to not be fat.
I agree, sure.
And not be dependent on the system. Let's go. Tyler.
Marcus gave $2. Said elites send their kids to school for networking. Marcus gave another $5, said the worst financial decisions of my life were 1, going to school for engineering, and 2, entertaining a serious relationship at the same time.
Well, that is challenging. People, you ever hear from doctors all the time that are in medical school and say they're trying to like do a serious relationship and do medical school, and they like go insane. Just a side note.
That's why I failed college, arguably, is because I was working like 60, 70 hours a week and trying to do full-time school at the same time. It wasn't possible because I was working graveyard shifts.
Yeah, you can't. And that's the other message. You can't, like I always say this to people, you can't do everything all the time. Like there's got to be, sometimes you can only do something some of the time, and you got to have that balance. Something's got to give. You only have 24 hours in a day. Anything else we got to get to?
Andrew, $10. All the doctors I've been to in the USA prioritize prescribing drugs.
Of course.
The eat healthy and exercise is always a footnote. Also, no one is talking about the role of trauma in society's health. And then Azron gave $5. Which do you like better, frogs or dinosaurs?
You're asking me to eat.
I don't think you can eat a dinosaur.
You can
nowadays.
eat frogs.
You can eat frogs.
Yeah. I've never eaten a
legs.
frog. Frog legs. That's a big thing. Where is that? Where do you eat frog?
We did in Nebraska. I think they do in Wisconsin, Illinois.
Yeah.
Louisiana,
frog legs. And they're supposed
Florida.
to. Everything you
that's
ask,
too, yeah.
I always ask people, what do they taste like? Tastes like chicken. Everything tastes like chicken somehow when you ask people. Isn't that
So does
crazy?
you ever had
Frogs
gator?
or dinosaurs? Dude, no, I didn't have gator, and I'm not going to have gator.
Gator tastes like chicken.
Ugh. Frogs or dinosaurs? Why are they asking me that?
Frogs or dinosaurs?
I'm going to go for a dinosaur. Frog looks slimy to me. I don't like slimy. Plus, if there's dinosaurs, it's going to be cool. That means I went back in my DeLorean, people, and I'm not in 2022 anymore. That's a good thing.
All right, I got one more
Yeah.
for Steven. Airborne gave $10. Said if Steven says he doesn't sacrifice his income for what he wants, why isn't he in Diamond League? Or why isn't he
That's
Diamond?
That's
in
a League of Legends joke. We don't do those here.
I don't know what that means.
It's a horrible video game.
I don't know anything about video games.
Oh, you're better off for it, probably.
Yeah, you know what I know about? Super Mario Brothers. That's about as far as I got, and I wasn't very good at it. I did kill I thought it was a dragon at the time, but apparently it's what is it at the end? Is it like a turtle or
Bowser.
something?
Bowser?
Yeah,
Bowser.
see, I'm not nerdy about I don't know. Okay, I want to ask you quickly about this is the last one we'll do today. The national divorce, I think, is a really, really interesting conversation. I remember this being brought up to me a few years ago, and I was always someone who didn't support that. You know, I would say, listen, we all have to figure out a way to have a conversation with each other. We all have to be able to, not that we have to agree, but we should be able to sit down. We're one country, you know, under God, all this stuff. And that's just how I felt about it for a very long time. And now I hear it, and I really feel that there are a lot of policies of the left that are so extremely damaging that I don't want them becoming reframing what this country is. And I'm starting to get behind, like, hey, the left and the right see the world so fundamentally differently in 2022. It's not just a political conversation about taxes or, you know, regulation or green energy. It's very deeply personal about these woke policies, about, you know, gender activism when it comes to kids, about school choice, about that. I can see how people would say, maybe we're just too different to be one. And am I worried that the policies of the other will infiltrate the country at large? We see the world very differently. So I think it's an interesting, do you support that in any way? Could you see a world where, forget about whether it will happen,
Yeah,
but
so here-
is that
this
the right path in some respects?
Okay, this is a valuable lesson I learned in a video game. I played a video game. I had a large group of people that I managed in the video game. And sometimes in that game, we had to make a decision about what was the next type of spaceship we were going to fly. And it's fun to have like a few people in the leadership be like, we're going to make this spaceship. Like, let's just do that. And that'd be awesome. And there was a lesson that I learned. Somebody suggested me this idea. And he said, anytime you want to do a particular thing, you should appoint at least one person on the other end to make arguments against it. And I found that when we went to do things in the future, it was always a really good idea. Because what would happen is if everybody wants to do one thing, you can very quickly get lost in this where you go farther and farther, you're like, whatever. And you need one person on the other end there to kind of keep you grounded. Because at the very least, even if you ultimately go in that direction, at least they're like, well, at least consider this, remember that, or like, don't forget to factor in this thing. At least they're there to kind of hold you to.
Right.
Yeah. So something that's happened in U.S. politics and worldwide, and I think the internet has contributed a lot to this, is in some ways we've become so ideologically homogenous in the country. It feels like we're getting more and more different. But I think what's actually happening is two groups are forming that are becoming more and more the same. where the right is completely pulled away from the left is completely pulled away from the right, and now on the right, they're having these conversations that are fucking wild to me. And on the left, they're having these, like on the right, it's like our election was stolen, the vaccine is, you think, mind control or whatever. And on the left,
I
it's
didn't
like,
say that. I just didn't want it.
And then on the left, it's, you know, like people are trans at 2 years old, and, you know, trans women and cis women are exactly the same competition, and we should have 55 an hour minimum wage. Like, and there's no more, I noticed this the most with the minimum wage argument, that when we were all kind of like here for minimum wage, it's like 15 an hour, 15 an hour, maybe 12 an hour, now 15 an hour, 15 an hour. But now that they've like totally fractured, people are like 15 an hour is slave labor. 25 an hour is the starting point. I was like, oh my God, what happened to the conversation there? But you're only surrounded by other left-leaning people. I think you said something that we see the world very differently, like the different groups in America. I agree with that, but I think that like 99% of humans are fundamentally the exact same. Like most of us want to like work so that we feel like we're contributing to society, come home, have families, have a little bit of fun. Like broadly speaking, that's where we're all at. And we're going to get into the weeds on stuff like gay issues or some social stuff, but for the most part, I think most people want the same thing. I think that as the groups have drawn out separately, I think the issue that we get into is people view the other side as having this fucking hatred for like their own people. So I can speak on the vaccine thing. When I look at people like you, who I would call anti-vaxxers or whatever.
I'm not an anti-vaxxer.
Okay, anti-coronavirus vaccine, right?
No, I just believe that people should be able to make the decision for themselves and not be mandated for.
You use the term experimental vaccine.
Sure. It is an experimental vaccine.
Sure.
It's not?
Not anymore. It's FDA approved.
Oh,
just like all the monoclonal antibodies.
Isn't that convenient?
That's how the approval process works.
Was it an experimental vaccine when it came out?
Well, every vaccine when it goes through experimental
So then my
stages.
terminology is correct.
Well, no, because now it's an FDA approved vaccine. It's not experimental.
I've been talking about an experimental vaccine for 2 years. It was an
every single vaccine is originally
just
experimental.
because something gets FDA approval overnight, by the way, doesn't mean that it's not experimental.
What does experimental mean? Experimental stands for I don't like it?
The day of difference. So the FDA approves it, and it was an experimental vaccine yesterday, but today it's not. What makes it not experimental?
Experimental is a human concept. No, yes, it's experimental, and then when the experiment ends, we say that.
What makes it not experimental is that it's time tested, and it's not time tested, so it's still experimental.
Which, you know that like when flu vaccines come out, those are created every season. Those all experimental.
This is experimental technology.
Are the flus all experimental to you?
The mRNA technology is experimental technology. There still aren't even adequate studies on it for many groups of people.
Well, adequate.
That's why you have.
So when does the mRNA technology not become experimental? Is it in 10 years?
Typically,
20 years?
when most vaccines come out, it's years of testing. When you have vaccines
I'm asking
that come out
you,
for childhood
when are you
vaccines,
going to say that the mRNA vaccines aren't
several
experimental?
years of testing where you have information.
So by 2030, assuming that everything's fine, you're like, okay, they're not experimental.
10 years of testing. Yeah, that's what I would expect to see on a new experimental technology. I would expect to see, because side effects don't unfold overnight. Some do.
Well, for vaccines, it's 2 months about. You're not going to see side effect 12 months later. The vaccine doesn't stay in your body. That's
actually not medically accurate. But carry on.
That is absolutely medically accurate.
Not
but
true. That's why they do on childhood vaccines. That's why on other vaccines they have extended testing for them.
Of course, we always look for extended testing. But for any vaccine that's been FDA approved.
Bottom line, listen.
Okay, wait.
No. Whether I chose to get the vaccine or not, labeling it experimental is accurate. It's experimental vaccine.
Okay.
Take it or not. But that is not my position. My position is you should be able to. I don't care if somebody wants to inject themselves with arsenic. By the way, it's up to them.
I understand. What about drugs?
Up to them.
Cool. Okay. When I look at your position, I'm 99% sure that you are thinking in your mind that this is the best thing for most of the people in the country, that people ought to have the right to do this thing. You're not thinking like, I want to fuck some people over, or I hate these blah, blah, blah.
I'm thinking you should be able to make the decision for yourself.
Sure. And then the people on the left who get a little bit crazy and are like, I want up to, I want children, everybody vaccinated, mandatory, blah, 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 blah. Even if there is evidence showing like, for young boys, is it worth the risk? I don't know.
Right.
I have to assume that they also want what's best for the country, that they want what's best for people. They think that they have the right answer, right? Mm-hmm. If you don't start from a place where you genuinely believe everybody is coming from the best of intentions, that they have like the best hopes, at least the voters. Mm-hmm. I can understand thinking that like maybe for some businesses they've got like misincentives or misaligned incentives, but at least for the voters, if you don't start from there, everything is already lost. You have to assume that when I'm talking to a guy that says that gay marriage should be illegal and it's horrible, blah, 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 the reason why he's saying that is because he thinks that certain LGBT issues are toxic or corrosive to the fabric of the country. He must believe it, yeah. So
fundamentally believing that people are good.
Yeah, we have to believe that. And I think that part of that belief is having these interactions with each other, right? you know, I can see somebody with a Blue Lives Matter, you know, back the blue, MAGA, all this, blah, 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 blah. And I can say that person, think, you know, they're not necessarily a horrible person because my mom is like that. She's a Cuban, and I know my mom. My mom is not a hateful, evil, horrible person, but she's also an insane fucking Trump supporter, okay? But it's not because she hates liberals and she hates the country.
But that's not where we are in 2022, unfortunately.
I understand, but that's why I'm talking to you, right? That's what
No, that's great. You know, I could walk away here today and say, you know, Steven seems like a nice guy.
Sure, but a lot of people aren't like that. I agree, yeah.
That's just not realistic, though, because people, and I think the last 2 years, though, I really think the last 2 years made that so much worse. And it was just my experience too. Like, it made everyone crazy, but it really just made it like you're the enemy in a way I hadn't seen in my lifetime. Perfect example was like, I went on The View and I didn't get the vaccine. It was just a personal decision. At the time, by the way, a decision I made with my own doctor saying, this isn't for you based on your medical history. I wouldn't do this. You already had COVID. We know what that looks like. It was no big deal. This is my advice for you. That was why I made the initial decision. And I went on there with people that I knew and had worked with and really just wanted to talk about mandates and my view that essentially I felt that this was a very personal decision because it was new and a lot of, you know, studies hadn't been done on a lot of groups of people. Just let people make the decision with their doctors. And if you get it, good for you. And if you don't get it, I'm okay with that, whatever. And I was just shouted down on second one as misinformation by people who were at, I mean, Sonny was at my wedding. So I realized in that moment, like, wow, we're in a dark time.
Yeah.
And that is the problem. And I think when you see, you know, cable news thrives on division. They thrive on screaming. I worked in there, you know, in that medium for a very long time. Politicians are always thriving on you're the enemy, you're this and you're that. So it's very hard for people to look at each other as not the enemy when that paradigm is reinforced everywhere. They turn their TV on, it's reinforced. They look at a politician they like, it's reinforced. Politicians can't win without being like, you're the enemy, you're what's wrong. You know, so I just don't think it's realistic. That's what I'm saying. In 2022, is it realistic to think that, or are we now at a point where a national divorce is coming because people can't see each other as people anymore?
This is the issue. This is what I think is the issue. Okay, I'm 33 years old, so I kind of grew up with the internet. It started to become a thing really like when I was older than like 10 is when people were using more than like AOL keywords and stuff.
Yeah.
And then even before me, there's this feeling of when you grow up in an area, to some extent, you kind of have to be able to get along with the people next to you. You're going to have to make your views somewhat commensurate because these are the people that you see every day. These are the people. If you have some insane fucking beliefs, those are going to either get weeded out or you're going to be the town weirdo, okay? Because nobody's going to be able to figure you out, okay? If you wanted to have sex with toasters in 1970, everybody's going to know you're weird. If I want to have sex with toasters...
Not in 2022.
No, because I can go online and I can find the best toaster fucking community that gives me all the best models and I can have 7,000 other people reinforce their opinion.
But what if somebody identifies as a toaster?
True.
Just saying.
But the internet has given us, in some ways, this beautiful ability to find other people. And in some ways, the worst thing is that we can find anybody we want. And it's let us not challenge our opinions and not be forced to make commensurate ideas we have with people around us. Because a lot of people, I don't even know who my neighbors are, but I can tell you like 15,000 people on this internet forum that all believe that either Trump or Hillary is the actual demon spawn that's going to lead us into World War III. And that, I think, is like the key problem is how divided we've gotten and how uncommunicative we've gotten with other people around us.
That's true, too. We don't communicate. And the fact that we don't know our neighbors is a problem.
Yeah.
It's a big societal problem.
To further that, because you talk about like the national divorce, if we did a national divorce, this is what would happen. If that happened, then there'd be another national divorce. Because here's what would happen on the left side, okay? We do the national divorce. Thank God, we got rid of all the Republicans. Well, now you've got AOC and the progressives looking at like Biden, and they're going like, why are you guys the new Republicans? You guys are crazy.
You got to do another split.
Exactly. And then on the Republican side, no offense, but like all the Daily Wire people are fighting with all the Turning Point USA people, which fight with all the alt-righters, which fight with some of the Trump people. Everybody on the right fights, it's funny because on the left, we always think that we only infight, but I've spent more time at right-leaning communities, and I didn't realize that so many people on the right.
Yes.
Oh my God.
There's a lot of,
and the gossip behind the scenes and everybody. So as soon as so this is kind of my thing. The United States of America has been an awesome experimental 250 years later, still an experiment, in that we've gotten so many different types of people together under one roof, and we've kind of made it work. It's been a little bit rocky at times, but damn, we're the biggest country in the world. We're like the leaders of freedom and democracy, some people would say. We've done a lot of really cool stuff in a relatively short amount of time, and in a long amount of time. We got the oldest living constitution. We've done a lot of cool stuff. We have to believe a fundamental underpinning of liberalism with a capital L is that lots of different people can exist together and can find a way to make it work. And when we start talking about things things like a national divorce, what we're really talking about is we're undermining the concept of liberalism with a capital, not like being liberal conservative, but like the idea of like freedom of speech and democracies with different people living with each other. And that's a scary concept to me.
Too many people in the country don't even support that anymore. I mean,
yeah, I know, we got to bring them back to it. Yeah, bring them back. That's not good.
Censorship, it's a disaster.
That's
Tyler,
the question.
I'm going to check in with you once more. Do you have anything for us? Otherwise, I want to ask about 2024. This will be our last question. I actually wasn't.
Yeah.
So you said in the beginning that you think Biden's going to run again?
I think Biden's going to win again. He's going to win again.
Oh,
my goodness.
He's just yanking my chain now. Okay, Biden's not going to run again. Here's why Biden's not going to run again. I'll tell you
another $20.
What I think is going to happen. I got $20 for this.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Biden's not going to run again because he doesn't know who he is. He doesn't know where he is, and they know they can't run him again because he clearly has a medical condition. I'm not going to say it's dementia because I'm not a I'm not a holistic doctor, so I wouldn't know.
You're not an MD.
See how
certified.
do you see how I went?
Yeah,
just wrapped that around.
absolutely.
Okay, so
he doesn't get enough diet and exercise, man.
Well, probably not. But he's got enough boosters. There's that. Anyway, so I don't think it's going to be him, but. And I'm curious. I was going to ask you who you think it is going to be, but you think it's going to be Biden. So
I feel like the incumbent advantage is like so big. This is one of the reasons why it would be really scary to run Trump again and for Trump to win is because he can't run again.
Well, let me ask you this though. Let's say it wasn't Biden. Can we just assume for a second? Let's say it wasn't. Who do you think it would be? Because everyone's talking about Gavin Newsom, and I'm just wondering how you feel about that.
So it's so much changes in 6 months, right? Like 6 months ago, I think it was 3 months ago, it was basically like gas prices were like $27 a gallon. Like I remember I think in Miami Beach, I want to say I saw over $7 a gallon. I was like, oh my God, it's over. But I mean, like we've seen gas prices fall a lot.
Yeah.
The economy changes, different things are happening, foreign policy wise, domestic policy wise.
Yeah, but if you had it today, let's just say
if I had today, how popular is Newsom nationally? Because when I lived in California, man, the opinions on him were split sometimes. Although I lived in some conservative areas sometimes too.
Who else would it be?
I don't know right now. Who else are besides Newsom?
I think it's going to be Newsom, honestly. I think it's going to be Newsom. I don't think it's going to be Biden, and Kamala's just, I don't know what to say about that.
Sure, it would never be Kamala, I don't think.
No, she's really profoundly terrible at delivering a message. There's enough video image. You don't have to trust me on that, audience. Just go watch her. But I'm curious, from your perspective, who would you, from Republican side, because we're looking at really Trump, DeSantis. That's what's going to be one of these two. Who would you prefer it be? I think it's pretty clear. You're going to say Trump, right? You'd prefer Democrats have to run against Trump.
For like political strategy, who would I prefer to be in power?
No. Who you would prefer, like you get to pick who Democrats get to run against, who they're most likely to beat.
Who are they most likely to beat? Oh, man.
Trump or DeSantis. That's who's good. I
think they're more likely to beat Trump because I think Trump makes more Democrat voters mad than DeSantis would.
Okay. And you're in Florida. How do you feel about DeSantis?
I don't like that very much, but...
Okay, he's very popular here.
Yeah, but I'm...
Yeah, he's very popular.
I'm very liberal. I'm very lefty.
I'm curious. Do you understand?
I just moved here like 6 months ago. So.
Okay, so where did you move from?
California, Newsom.
Okay, so what's really interesting, that's fascinating.
Yep.
You and a whole bunch of other liberals left a liberal, rotting place and came to Florida. How fascinating. Mm-hmm. Why'd you do that?
Crazy.
Why'd you do that?
My wife really likes beaches. And
it's just the beaches?
Well,
because they have beaches in California,
Not that you can swim at it year round. The beaches in California, though, some of them
Is that why you came here for the beaches? Let's be honest.
It is the beaches. She likes tropical weather, and it's the time zone because when we do video content here, we can stream to Europe.
Do you think that most liberals left California and New York City because of beaches and the time zone to come to Florida?
Probably affordability is a big one.
It's very expensive, actually, right now in Florida to rent.
I know, actually, because my rent is really high. But
yeah.
I mean, like it could be, affordability is one of those things. Tax is another thing.
Taxes.
The general.
Low taxes.
Yeah, the lack of support for the city.
That's why they came to Florida.
I don't know why any particular person moves. For me, taxes are insanely high, and the city is not supported with my tax money.
Oh, you mean in California?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is, do you understand as a liberal? Because oftentimes I'll have these conversations.
I remember. Hold on. I was born and raised in Omaha, Nebraska for 30 years. So
okay.
I understand.
So do you understand why people move to cities that have low taxes and that have freedom is prioritized for its citizens? DeSantis, one of the reasons people came to Florida actually was DeSantis primarily. I don't think it was Florida.
Okay.
I think it was DeSantis because he was the guy that was on the front lines and he was battling a lot of the mandates. And people who were coming from mandate-rich turf like California and New York and were exhausted by lockdowns and mask mandates and vax mandates came to a place where they felt that they could just make their own decisions. That was really the appeal of Florida for the last 2 years. I don't know what it will be in the future.
I mean, Florida has always been like the final retiree destination for a lot of Americans. Like a lot of Americans. My parents have lived down here for, I think, like 10 years.
Yeah, but I'm talking about young people, 30s, 40s. They're not retiring. They're coming down to Florida.
I don't know how many young people could afford to move to Florida. I don't know if there's been like tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands or whatever.
Okay. 30s, 40s, there's a lot.
Work from home maybe affected that too because they were able to work long distance.
But why come to Florida?
Why? Probably because it's it's either Florida or Texas, right?
Right.
Because there are no income tax states.
But why aren't people moving to New York and California?
Why would? Because it's a higher cost of living, higher income tax.
Okay. So you're making a case for what I'm making a case for.
What do you think I'm making a case for?
You're making a case for lower taxes and more opportunity.
I'm making the case for the opportunity I'm going to have is probably going to be the same almost everywhere because it's a federal.
Well, I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about people in general.
Sure. Well, the opportunity depends. You're probably going to have more opportunity in California for a lot of things than depending on the type of job you're working. There's a reason why it's like the tech capital, Silicon Valley of the world.
To keep more of your hard-earned cash, though. Here's the point I'm making.
No, wait. Hold on.
To keep more of your money.
This is the issue that I have. Okay. Before I got into streaming, I was a professional carpet cleaner. Okay. Mm-hmm. It sucked. I worked 13-day stretches. I had every other Sunday off, and I made anywhere from $1,500 to $2,000 a month. Okay. And that was probably the time period of my life when I was the most conservative person. Mm-hmm. When I thought that if I work hard, if I do whatever I can build blah, 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 blah. And one of the things I realized is as I got wealthier, so many things in life became non-issues, things that were insurmountable before. So for me, it was anything related to my fucking car. If I popped a tire,
right.
If I broke a wheel,
yep.
The check engine light was on forever. Okay, you put a piece of tape over it, whatever. These are things that were just destructive to my life. And as I got older, I realized, hey, these things don't matter anymore. When I had a son,
because you had more money.
Yeah. When I had a son, I was thinking, well, what kind of school do I want to go to? I went to a Catholic school growing up. I really liked the Catholic high school. Didn't like my Catholic grade school. I wanted to go to a good public school. So I bought a house in the best public school district because I have the money to do that.
Right.
When the coronavirus stuff happened, and there's a lot of people staying home, and I look at like what my son does in the class, what he does at home. When my son comes home, in first grade, he has an iPad that is rented to them. They get to take these
I worked in
home.
schools like that. I know.
That is insane to me. And one of the most upsetting things that I could think of as a parent is if I was stuck in a shitty part of the city and I didn't have the opportunities afforded to me by my parents and my kid didn't have access to internet, technology, an iPod, lunch. And I look at children who are stuck in these shitty scenarios and before they even have a chance to step one adult foot out into the world, they're already like playing so far behind. So when I think of like social programs and taxes and all of this shit in general, I make a lot of money. If I lose an extra 50 or 100,000, it sucks, but I don't really care at the end of the day. But if that to me is the difference between a kid getting to take home an iPad or to have a gym that's not leaky or be able to do those things, I'm okay with that trade-off. That's generally how I look at things. And I understand that for some people you like the freedom to do what you want with money. I like freedom too, and I do like the low tax here. But the reason why I left California was because I didn't feel like I was getting my tax money. There's homeless people everywhere. A lot of the schools have issues. But if I was living in a place like Sweden or any place in France or Germany or these other countries I've been to, man, they got buses that run 24/7. Their cities are awesome. They got school. They got healthcare. Everything. I don't care if I get taxed all here because people are at least getting something for it. Sorry, that's my
And I hear what you're saying. I think it's a fundamental difference oftentimes between liberals and conservatives in terms of what you think the solutions to the problems are. So I think people can recognize problems. Like you were talking about inequality, essentially, and income inequality. And that's something that's real. And obviously, once you have money, and you do now, you're able to afford a lot more options. You're talking about, a luxury school. These private schools oftentimes can cost $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 a year for grade school in some cities for kids to go to school. So of course, that's going to afford them more opportunities. I think where the interesting conversation happens is what's the fix? And immediately while you're talking about that, I'm thinking, well, that's why I'm an advocate for school choice. That's why I'm not an advocate for spending a ton of money on schools that waste that money and largely don't produce better teachers, better quality of education for kids. I want that single mom who's struggling to pay bills and has a child to be able to send that kid to any school in the system that she wants because I don't want her to be districted, by the federal government.
But what do you do with the fact that these people can't drive their kids to that school? The best school for them might be on the other side of the city. It might be a 45, 50,
but we're not even affording that option because oftentimes folks on the left shut down school choice in order to enable teachers unions, in order to enable this structure. The problem I have with a big government structure oftentimes is that it doesn't afford flexibility to families. Like I am a big proponent, and I'm not saying there aren't great public schools out there because there are, but there are also terrible public schools, and I want to afford that woman the option to send her child wherever she wants, even if she may say, I'll figure out how to get him there. Can I do it? Yes, you can. You have the opportunity to do that. So I was hearing that, and I was hearing, we started this whole conversation talking about money and finances, and that what you just described to me is my reason for wanting people to have money because money is power and money is choice. And you had said, $60,000 a year, someone can be happy, but $60,000 a year doesn't offer the same freedoms that when you have, I don't know what you make in a year, but it sounds like a lot. You're able to send your kid to that school. You're able to make decisions that you wouldn't be able to make on a $60,000 a year salary.
Sure.
So all I'm saying is that we live in a world where things are expensive. That is a reality. And by empowering people to be financially independent, whatever that looks like, and maybe that's you make $60,000, maybe that you make $60,000 or $70,000 a year, but you make a different choice about where to live, and you don't live in New York City, you live somewhere else, or maybe it's you make $200K, and for your family that's what works because there's 3 kids involved, and I don't know what everyone's individual family dynamic looks like, but money is power, money is freedom, and money is opportunity. That's just a reality. So
I just wish we had some of that opportunity without the money needing to be there. Like, no offense, I love you, Nathan, but like, you don't deserve anything. You're 11 years old. You haven't worked for anything in your life. The only reason he has the opportunities available to him that he does is because of his father. And there's another kid out there that is probably smarter than my kid, more talented, can do whatever, and he's stuck in some horrible school where they don't even have TVs.
That's why I speak out for school choice.
School choice. His mom wouldn't be able to drive him the 45 minutes to the other end of the.
You don't know that. You don't know, and that's also why I talk about community, because the disintegration of community is one of the biggest problems in society. Because it used to be that we lived more communally, and you would have a baby, and let's say we talk about that single mom who has a kid and finds herself in an unfortunate circumstance but wants to keep that baby. It used to be that you did know your neighbors, and that families lived more communally, and your mom, your dad, your aunt, your uncle were close by, and we don't live connected like that anymore. And that's a big problem because there's no one to lean on within your own family, within your own community. I remember growing up, and I lived in a little cul-de-sac, and we didn't have a lot of money, but everybody knew each other. So if you needed somebody else's, I'll watch the kids today, and there was much more a sense of that.
Sure.
So I don't think that, for me, the solution is not government. I don't believe that government is this all-powerful, all do-gooder God. I believe the answer is in personal responsibility, personal accountability, and the rebuilding of community as a support system for each other. And if we don't do that, you can throw all the money at a problem in the world, and it's not going to fix it if you don't have a sense of a shared humanity and a shared community. So maybe we can agree on some of that.
I disagree. But this is like the classic tension between like the liberal and the conservative of the United States. And I think that the answer is in the middle, that the liberal tends to view problems from the top down. The government can put more money at it. We need federal legislation and laws. We need to blah, blah, blah. And the conservative tends to look bottom up, right? Well, you're not going to need this federal help if you've got neighbors, if you've got churches, if you've got communities that can help you. And yeah, the answer is there's a tension between those two things where sometimes, communities can fix problems in ways that the government is never going to be able to help with. But sometimes you need the government to come in, after 64 civil rights, and they need to say, listen, okay, racism in the workplace, we're not doing this anymore. The federal government's taking over here. But yeah, I understand that like the conservative mindset is one that tends to be more locally focused, and there are a lot of problems losing that. But the answer is somewhere in that tension between the two. And obviously being on the left, I fight more for the left side, but I mean, I recognize, especially coming from Omaha, the value on the right side as well, for sure.
Well, I had a great time. I hope you did too. You've certainly made me think. I think that's just something that we need more of in society, is that I invite someone like you on and I walk away and I say to my husband later, he talked about this and I disagreed on most of it, but this came up and it forced me to think about this a little bit more, particularly on the abortion debate.
I'm just going to have nightmares of that 19-week fetus being
it's not a fetus, it's a baby.
The baby.
Seriously speak, I'm telling you straight up though, the losing argument for liberals on abortion, I will say this, because I think that there are a lot of people in the country who come from a good place who are pro-choice, but I think the losing argument for that is minimizing the fact that there's something very real and very special that goes on inside a woman's body in the process. And if it's just like, just kill it, no big deal, you lose, because it is a person growing inside of someone. So I'm just keep in mind when you make those arguments, seriously.
Gotcha. Okay.
I'm just saying, how you could say to me, well, think about the rape, incest, that's, our job is to kind of listen a little bit too. And that, just saying, I don't think that's going to be a win.
Okay. Gotcha.
Just saying, that's my advice. Tyler May. Do you have any comments or thoughts on the show, Tyler? Tyler was very quiet today. He was just observing what went back and forth. I'm curious, did the audience like it?
Yeah, they liked it.
Okay, cool.
Thought it was good. Did really well. The audience was a big fan. Really liked Destiny.
Do you have anything to share?
Definitely want him back. I just thought it was an exceptionally interesting conversation.
Tyler's conservative, so you probably twisted him up a bit too.
Well, there were a lot of points in there. I said, God damn, that's a really good point. Specifically the university point where
rich people send their kids to...
Well, no. The point you made about conservatives need to step into these gender studies, because when there's no conservatives in the gender studies courses, then what does it do? It gets taken over and becomes an expert.
It's like
I think that's an
value.
exceptionally interesting point.
Yeah, it's a problem that I have with conservatives in art in general. Is that like all the arts are dominated by these progressives, and I want there to be more conservative representation there, just so that like, it would just be better for it
to make it more interesting too.
Yeah, it would flesh it all out for sure. Yeah.
Well, that's why the Daily Wire. I know you made a little joke about them, but they're getting into like film and TV and all that stuff.
Oh yeah, I've seen all 3 of the God's Not Dead films. Have you seen them?
I saw the Gina Carano one, and I actually thought it was quite good. I'm not gonna lie, I did enjoy it. So I don't know.